Here are today's headlines. The government of Tigray releases a statement of condemning latest offensive by Ethiopian forces and says it will take all necessary measures to ensure the security and well-being of its people. Mekelle University staff call for an end to the siege and reinstatement of university budget. Hello and welcome. I'm Lalam Techana. Now the details. Tigray External Affairs Office released a statement on Monday stating that despite the repeated appeal by the international community as well as the government of Tigray to find a peaceful resolution for the conflict, Abiy Ahmed and his allies have started what they have called a final offensive on October 11, 2021. The statement says this recent offensive was launched by the Ethiopian military with the support of the Amhara militia, launching a coordinated offensive on all fronts in an attempt to reinvade Tigray and complete their genocidal intentions. The statement reads that in addition to fielding hundreds of thousands of regular and irregular fighters, the forces are supported by heavy artillery, tanks, rockets, drones, and fighter jets, leaving no doubt about their intent for the total war. The statement explains that the government of Tigray repeatedly expressed its commitment to negotiate and emphasized that it doesn't consider war as a legitimate means for ending the conflict, but that its armed forces will defend against adversaries' coordinated and prolonged offensive to ensure the security and well-being of the people of Tigray. The statement reiterates that the establishment of Stetskoante, in which all invading forces, primarily the Amhara militia, and Eritrean troops' withdrawal from all constitutionally established territories of Tigray, as well as an end to the siege, is essential for a peaceful end to the conflict. The statement calls for international community to condemn the latest offensive and support the people of Tigray in their hour of need by going beyond rhetorical condemnation and take meaningful actions on the Ethiopian, Eritrean, and Amhara regional governments to compel them to cease from their genocidal project and ensure the delivery of much-needed aid into the region. In related news, Dr. Debretsion Gebremichael released a statement concerning the joint motion for a resolution by the European Parliament. The EU Parliament passed a resolution on October 7th calling for the immediate cessation of hostility by all parties. Selam Berhane has the details.
The statement emphasized the President's gratitude to the European Union for its consistent and principled efforts to find a peaceful resolution to the crisis in Tigray in particular and in Ethiopia in general. However, the letter states its disappointment that the international response to the genocidal war on Tigray has been woefully inadequate, saying the humanitarian landscape in Tigray remains dire and is expected to get worse. The president also criticized a tendency by the international community to apportion blame for ongoing hostilities, not on the basis of facts but on the need to appear even-handed. The president stated that the mere fact that there are two or more parties to a conflict does not automatically imply that their causes are equally just and their conduct equally appropriate, and added that the European Parliament resolution suggesting the imposition of sanctions on all parties is a glaring example of this tendency to propose punitive sanctions on victims and aggressors alike. That indiscriminate sanction is bound to fail to achieve its objectives. By punishing the victim, it rewards the aggressor. In the statement, the president also reiterated his government's disappointment in the expulsion of 7 high-level UN officials, saying the Ethiopian government has once again displayed its disdain for the rules and norms of government and international conduct. The EU resolution also highlights the arbitrary detention, forcibly disappearing of Tigrayans, and delicensing of Tigrayan-owned businesses in Ethiopia's capital.
Mekelle University academics, health and technical professionals, and support staff call for an immediate end to the siege on Tigray and the reinstatement of the university's budget. University staff have not received their salaries since July, when the federal government discontinued the university's budget, blocking employee salaries. and the university has called this improper and against federal laws. The staff say the siege has forced the university to cease its academic work, research, community engagement, saying the university's work in collaboration with national and international universities and institutions have been halted, community service stopped, and called for emphasis to be given to the work of Ida Comprehensive Referral Hospital that has no longer been able to provide medical care. The statement finally called on all stakeholders and collaborators to understand the dire situation and stand with the university community, calling for an end of the siege. Price inflation continues to show a rapid increase as the siege continues to tighten with a blockade of all food items as well as medical supplies, in addition to the blockade of banking services. In this week's briefing, OCHA announced that some food items in Tigray had shown an increased amount of 400%. Our reporters were on the ground in Abiy Adi to observe how life has been affected by the siege. Miro Nemana has more on that.
We are selling it for about 60 and 55 birr. We are selling the potatoes for 30 birr. We are selling the oil for 700 birr.
For the past 3 months, as banks have remained closed, roads blocked, and very little supplies available, residents of Abiy Adi have witnessed unprecedented rise in the food prices.
Everything is expensive now. They are selling onions for about 60 and 70 birr. We don't have money. I can't even use my money from the bank as the banks are shut. Even when the bank is open, a person is only allowed to withdraw 500 birr. And to even get that cash, you have to wait in a line for days, spending the nights there. Sugar has reached 100 birr. Tomatoes are getting sold for 60, and paper is nowhere to be found. Even the transportation fee has overly increased. We are suffering.
Tomatoes and edible oil are overly priced right now. They are selling coffee beans for about 800 and 700 birr right now. This is what I got after I had worked all day. There is an inflation of price. The people are facing severe financial difficulties. They have nothing to eat. Everything is overly priced. Everything. Coffee beans, sugar, and even salt has reached 70 birr. The people are facing serious hardships. I myself came here with 50 birr hoping to find some pepper, but I couldn't, so I'm just strolling around. The pepper is getting sold for 25 and 30 birr per plate. Green pepper is getting sold for 40 birr. Now I'm just going home with an empty bag, empty-handed, because the items charge price we can't afford.
Of over 400%, and fuel in the town of Shira recorded a whopping 2,300% increase. Humanitarian partners estimate that 100 trucks with food, non-food items, and fuel must enter Tigray on a daily basis to reach 1 million people facing famine-like conditions in Tigray, and the 5.3 million in need of emergency assistance. It also says rapid market surveys of basic food and non-food items in Shira and Ma'ala show that the prices of essential commodities have significantly increased since mid-June, making them unaffordable for most of the population.
This was all caused by the lootings and the closure of bank systems. Abiy and Isaias led to the displacement of many, looted our belongings, they even shut down the banks. We are only sitting here and selling these items in a hope that some people with some money left would buy them. Other than that, there is no money circulating.
The consequences brought by the invaders are tough and hard to bear. Way before this conflict, we had functional and happy life, but now our lives are in complete disorder. Let alone buying chair and fancy stuff, we can't afford our food. We are just sleeping on the floor.
Mira Neumann, our colleague, she is here in the studio and she'll tell us more about the price hikes because of the siege. Thank you, Mira, for joining us. Tell us more about that.
Thank you, Lalim. Now, OCHA Ethiopia made this report with the support of cluster coordinations from the period of 29 September up to 4th October. Now, let's look at this image This image shows the result of the rapid market surveys in Shira and Magala, showing price inflations from mid-June up to the present. Now let's look at price inflation since Shira. Benzene has increased by 2,300%, and in Magala it has increased with 363%. If we look at diesel, it has increased by 1,200%. In Magala, it has increased by 666%. Now, if we look at kerosene, it has increased by 275%. In Magala, it has increased by 200%. And if we look at these items, cooking oil, coffee, sugar, flour, rice, bread, and salt, they have increased by an enormous amount. Now, consequently, UN and other partners have had to significantly reduce or suspend programs needed assessments and movements to from their field offices to other locations, as they've almost run out of fuel. Now, let's look at the next image. Now, in this image, it shows the causes of causes of starvations in Tigray. Now, let's start with locust invasion. Locust invasion, desert locusts that laid eggs in July and early August has started hatching in southeastern, central, eastern zones like Samra, Hentalo, Bergalle, Yajala Waradas. In southeastern are now confirmed to have newly hatched locusts. Farm households at risk of losing their crops with control operations. Response to livestock disease outbreak in 22 waradas across the region. Now, for the second and third, hunger is used as a weapon of war in Tigray, and humanitarian aids have been blocked. So, access to areas bordering Eritrea in the far north, western and southern parts in northwestern zone remains inaccessible due to the security situations, as we all know. Now, as for the fourth one, the discontinuation of public services and man-made famine, the delivery of humanitarian supplies to the Tigray region remains heavily constrained via the only access route through Afar, called Samara Bala Magala corridor. Now, much-needed fuel and medical supplies were not allowed. Now, let's look at the next image. Now, this image here shows that the humanitarian catastrophe in Tigray has taken place severely. So, the first data shows 5.2 million people are in need of urgent food aid. And the second data shows that 2.2 million internally displaced people are in Tigray. So, let's look at the third image here. And if we think about the displaced people, let's locate these people. Where are these displaced people? Now, the first data shows the Shira and Dasalasa and surrounding areas has 603,000 people displaced in it. It has the highest number by far. And the second one would be Shararo and its surrounding areas has 275,000 people in it. And these areas, Adwa, Adigrat, Ma'ala, Aksum, and yes, these areas have over 100,000 people displaced in them. And Abiadi and its surrounding areas has 40,000 people displaced. Wugro and its surrounding areas has 25,000 people displaced. And Samra and its surrounding areas has 32,000 people displaced in it. Let's look at the next image. Okay, so these are the confirmed deaths due to starvation made by Tigray television recently. So health centers in Dela reported 16 people died, and health centers in Mohoni reported 9 people died. 16 people were confirmed dead in the health center of Kolatambi. Also in Arena, 9 people were confirmed dead. In Sagareda, 4 people were confirmed dead. In Hausen, similarly, 2 people were confirmed dead. In Salawat, 16 people. In Wajarat, 3 people. In Woro, 14 people. In Aider, 8 people. In Adigrat, 8 people. Now, we have this related data that Food continues to be the most urgent need in Tigray, with an estimated over 400,000 people are suffering from catastrophic hunger levels of IPC5, according to the latest food security analysis. Now, these were the reports. Thank you, Lalim, so much.
Thank you, Mira, for
having me.
joining us and for your analysis. Thank you. During 8 months of conflict, Ethiopian and Eritrean soldiers in Sahati district had looted and destroyed food crops and slaughtered livestock. Now the Ethiopian government has discontinued all public services. The UN says that over 5.3 million Tigrayans are in dire need of humanitarian assistance, and nearly 1 million are facing famine. Our reporters were on the ground in Sahati district to observe the effects of the past 8 months of conflict and following siege. Seblo Lama has more on that.
This is Saharti district, in the southeastern part of Tigray. Residents tell us that for months, Ethiopian and Eritrean soldiers slaughtered livestock, stole food items, and committed extrajudicial killings. Now the invaders are long gone, but the destruction of the past year has meant that it won't be so easy to recover.
They left nothing. They took our clothes, donkeys, goats, and everything. They also dwelled in our homes for weeks and used our food stocks. What happened then is indescribable. Our brothers died on the streets. It was so difficult and horrifying. They took everything, including flour, chickens, and goats. They looted them all in our absence after we went into hiding.
The presence of Ethiopian and Eritrean forces in Saharti, in the almost 4 months long siege that has discontinued all public services, including communication and banking services, and blocked roads, as well as all forms of commercial goods from coming into Tigray, has meant that aid is not able to reach the millions in need.
I took him into hiding so many times, and there's no food out there. He didn't get the nutrition that he needed, so he got sick. For a long time now, we've had nothing to eat. I have older children, and they grew up healthy because we didn't have to run and hide. They grew up in a time of peace. But this one is very sick because he didn't get the food a child needs. My baby didn't get any kind of food for 3 days. He became very weak, and I thought that he died for a moment. So I brought him into this clinic, and they gave him medical help that he needs to survive.
Romhatzion Mitiku is a director of Gujet Health Center. He said that only 2 or 3 children used to be admitted for malnutrition-related illness yearly. However, in the current situation, 9 children have been admitted in just 1 week.
It has
been 11 months since the war started, and mothers weren't getting enough food during pregnancy because they were going into hiding into the forests where there is no food. So this made them anemic. They're giving birth to infants suffering from malnutrition. All of these children in this hospital are underweight and need incubation. So this shows us that the siege is causing starvation-related illness on children.
Tsaga is a coordinator of disease prevention in the Bureau of Health in the district of Saharti. He said that almost 5,000 children and more than 2,500 lactating mothers are in need of urgent food assistance. He also called on the international community as well as the humanitarian aid workers to help those in need.
We have received 10 children from Gujet in just 15 days, and one of them has already died. We also have 4,879 children and 2,532 mothers that are prone to famine and in dire need of urgent assistance. Therefore, all of the humanitarian aid workers and the international community need to help us in order to save the lives of thousands.
He also added that there were 4 clinics and 12 health centers in the district, and almost all of them are looted and destroyed, making it impossible to reach the millions in need of medical care.
In the past year of the conflict, countless number of atrocities were committed on civilians. Many of these atrocities are yet to come to light as communication access into Tigray remains blocked. Our reporters went to a district in central zone of Tigray to document just one of the many horrific crimes committed by Eritrean forces. Abel Zagawa has more on that.
In the past year of the conflict, residents of Adit, a district in the central zone of Tigray, have witnessed countless massacres. Innocent civilians, teachers, public servants were predominantly targeted by Eritrean forces.
In just one day, enemy forces killed 19 teachers. One of the teachers escaped and told us what happened. He told us that all of them were teachers and innocent civilians. The next day, they killed 2 more civilians. They kept on killing innocent people. By May, they killed 71 civilians, using them as cannon fodders. We have buried the victims later. Most victims have come from Adagabarha, Seka, Shanako, Jirra, and other places. They are buried here.
Member of the cabinet for the district, Ato Lu'ul Weldahawaria, expressed that the Eritrean troop had committed a number of massacres in Adit, killing hundreds of civilians.
243 residents were killed by the Ethiopian and Eritrean forces. They have massacred 58 persons in Adag Arbi in front of their children, mothers, and wives. This shows the brutality of the forces. In Sha'akabale, they called the people for a meeting and killed 31 of them. But earlier, they have told them that they won't kill them. They also slaughtered more than 20 youngsters in Jirra. They have also killed civil servants who were on their way to Adit from Axum. Most of them were teachers, and we have 5 mass graves just here.
In addition, he said that the attack on women was wide, as same as the rest of Tigray, and the scar will take long to heal.
They attack women cruelly. They ask pregnant women to abort it, and they told them that it is only possible to get pregnant as long as the father is Amhara or Eritrean. Otherwise, to get pregnant off Tigrayan is prohibited. They were also raping them. It is the women that faces the harshest crimes.
Tigray's health system has completely collapsed, and the very few health facilities still in operation are expressing grave concern that they are not able to provide necessary medical care for patients due to lack of medical supplies. Our reporters were at Magala Hospital to observe the effects of the siege on the patients. Abraha Gabertensay has more for us.
Over 80% of Tigray's health facilities were destroyed by Ethiopian, Eritrean, and allied Amhara forces since the start of the conflict that has led to the complete collapse of Tigray's health system. The remaining health facilities are now running out of stock for the most essential health supplies as the siege on Tigray is going on its 4th month. Maqal Hospital is one of the oldest and busiest health facilities in Tigray, providing treatment for hundreds of patients on a daily basis. Sister Sabla Mahari is a pharmacist at Maqal Hospital. She says the hospital is running out of medication and will soon be unable to provide medicine for its patients.
It's so frustrating to see our stock shrinkage. It is painful to be unable to provide medicine for the patients that need it. It is heartbreaking to hear innocent people being massacred and women being raped and strange objects being placed in their uterus. And then they will come here only to be told that we can't provide them with medication.
Gavra Abebe, coordinator of the pharmaceutical unit at Maqal Hospital, says before now, the hospital used to provide sufficient medicine both in variety and quantity to patients. However, says Gabra, currently the capacity of the hospital to provide medication has dramatically declined due to the siege.
There are some medicines on the shelf, but the variety is limited. There are medicines and medical equipments that are completely out of stock. For example, we have run out of plaster. That is very useful for treating wounds in the emergency ward. People have started dying due to starvation and shortage of medicine. There are some medicines on the shelf, but the variety is limited. There are medicines and medical equipments that are completely out of stock. For example, we have run out of plasters. That is very useful for treating wounds in the emergency ward. People have started dying due to starvation and shortage of medicine in our hospital. Patients with MDR case and chronic ART are dying.
Dr. Filmon Mesfin is the general manager of Maqala Hospital. He says people can't make use of the existing health facilities because, according to Dr. Filmon, there is severe shortage of medicine and medical supply across Tigray.
بتግራይ ደረጃ ዝነበረ ናይ መድሓኒት ኣቅርቦት ናብ 80ታት ከባቢ ዝጽጋዕ ዝነበረ ሕዚ ናብ ትሕቲ 50 ናብ ትሕቲ 40% ዝወረደሉ እዩ ዘሎ.
Before the conflict, the medical supply in Tigray was nearly 80%. Now it has declined to 50 to 40%. In our hospital, our medical supply was close to 80 to 90% before the war broke out in Tigray. We usually conduct a survey on the possibility of getting all prescriptions in the hospital. This means if one patient has 4 prescriptions, the possibility of getting 4 of them in our hospital was very high. But now, this has gone down to 60 to 50%.
Before the start of the conflict, mechanized farming had been showing a steady and promising increase. Our reporters were on the ground in Raya Azabo to observe Halak Amogos's farm, a modern agriculture complex destroyed by Ethiopian forces and allied regional militia. The agricultural complex had been built with an investment of 1.5 billion birr. For more, Deres Burhana has more reports.
Halaka Mogus Farm, a modern agricultural complex and center for animal husbandry and animal fattening in southern of Tigray, a district of Raya Azabum. The farm was built with an investment of over 1.5 billion birr on 129 hectares of land.
The way that the cows were killed was heartbreaking. Their bodies were dismembered and given to hyenas. Some of the cows were loaded on trucks and taken to Waldia and Kobo.
Halaka Mogus said that all 495 of hybrid cows imported from Holland were either slaughtered or taken along with their children. 280 of them had given birth with 4 months of their arrival. But Halaka Mogus says he is hopeful that they will rebuild the project once again.
They looted and vandalized the property.
The employee said that it has been completely looted and its equipment destroyed.
At the start of the conflict, the soldiers dismantled and loaded the machines to Amhara region, saying that it belongs to Siyum Mesfin. They looted and vandalized the property. They said it belongs to the junta. There were foreign experts here. They chased them out and left the fire mysterious in their eyes.
There are many unspoken tragedies in Tigray. This is an example of humanly impossible act done by Ethiopia and its allies against the people of Tigray, sent at the very day of the war.
We will not lose hope. They looted our property, not our mind and skills.
That's it from me for now. Thanks for watching. See you on Thursday.